Captain Mendez spoke without turning from the viewport. They have been watching for a century. His prosthetic arm glinted under the warning light. Every 3 seconds, the red pulse illuminated a face that did not blink. Below them, the ship's void reactor drew power from microscopic tears in reality. Its thrum vibrated through the deck plates, a constant pressure against Mira Cortez's boots. Mira looked from the captain to the data slate in her hands. The numbers stared back, clean and absolute. They represented a demand from the Thornaki. The alien species were not builders. They were growers, a plantoid race whose vessels were massive, living organisms that consumed resources on a planetary scale. The demand itself was simple. Exclusive mining rights on the moon designated Epsilon 7. The message was a single line of text rendered in careful alien script. It was an offer they could not accept. It was also an offer they could not refuse. At the heart of the dispute was a mineral called Cryo-beryl. When supercooled, the blue crystals generated a stable and powerful energy field. The colony on Epsilon 7 depended on it. Earth depended on it. Mira set the slate down on the table. And now they want to take. They do not take, Mendez corrected. His flesh hand gestured toward the viewport. They offer terms, then worse terms, then they make the first offer seem generous. Through the thick glass, the Thornaki ship hung against the darkness. It was a hull of woven vines and hardened bark. Veins of amber sap pulsed beneath the surface. It had no visible weapon mounts. It did not need them. The door hissed open. Mira Osai stepped into the lounge, wiping her hands on her trousers. A smudge of grease marked her jaw. "The void reactor is stable," she reported, "but the quantum mind is showing superposition errors." The ship's crystalline core calculated probabilities, not certainties. "I need time to recalibrate." Mira turned to face her. "How much time?" "A standard day, maybe 2. Mira's eyes darted to the viewport. She swallowed. "Running high-level simulations now is too risky. A collapse of the logic array is a real possibility." Mendez spoke softly. "How long without it?" "We lose predictive modeling," Mira confirmed. "Real-time threat analysis. The ship can fly, but we are blind to probability." The hologram projector on the table flickered to life. A column of green light coalesced into a tall, slender figure. Executor Spire stood inside the light, a tower of bark and fronds. Its photosynthetic leaves unfurled from its shoulders. A faint scent of wood smoke seemed to drift from the projection. Mira's mind supplied it. Spire spoke in rustling tones. "Broker Cortez, have you reviewed our proposal?" Mira straightened her posture. "We have. The terms are unacceptable." Spire's fronds stiffened. "The terms are generous. Your colony on Epsilon 7 numbers 300. They rely on Cryo-beryl. We offer you Thornaki biotech, a modified fungal strain that triples crop yield. Your food production would exceed your needs by a factor of 4. Mendez cut in, his voice low. "In exchange for permanent withdrawal, we leave. You take everything." Spire did not acknowledge him. Its gaze remained fixed on Mira. "The terms are final." Mira stepped closer to the hologram. "We propose a different arrangement, shared extraction, a split of 70-30 in your favor. The humans retain a permanent research outpost on the moon." Spire's form clicked. Each word was a small stone dropped onto a table. "A permanent human presence on a Thornaki extraction site, that is not acceptable." "We are not asking for control," Mira pressed. "We are asking for presence." "Presence becomes control," Spire countered. "We have observed the galaxy for 10,000 of your years. We know how expansion works. You plant a seed, you call it research, then a colony, then a world." Silence filled the lounge. Spire's form flickered at the edges. "Our offer expires in 1 standard cycle. After that, we will renegotiate at the extraction site itself, with your colony present." The hologram collapsed. The green light vanished. Mendez turned from the viewport, his face set. "They are patient, but not forever. 1 cycle is their timetable." Mira felt the weight of the 300 colonists. She felt the weight of Earth's energy grid. She felt everything balanced on a single negotiation. She looked at Mendez. "I need more time." "We do not have it." "I will make it," Mira stated. "I am going down to the colony. I need to inspect the stockpile personally, confirm the numbers." Mendez studied her, then nodded once. Mira walked toward the door. Her boots echoed on the deck plates. The hum of the reactor rose through the soles of her shoes, a constant reminder. Mira called out from behind her, her voice tight. "Broker Cortez." Mira stopped and turned. Mira held up a glowing screen on her wristband. The quantum mine just emitted a warning. A second Thornaki ship has entered the system. Mendez stepped forward. Status. Amara's face was pale, armed. Mira stood in the doorway. The air tasted of recycled oxygen. The red light pulsed. The reactor hummed. She thought of the armed ship that had just arrived, and she walked into the corridor. The walls of the Thornaki vessel pulsed. A slow, wet rhythm beat through miles of woven vine. Executor Spire stood in the data chamber, his fronds spread to absorb the dim light from fungal nodes. The air smelled of damp soil and decaying leaves, a familiar comfort. The leaf-like screen before him rippled. Director Root's face formed in the bioluminescent patterns. The senior executive was covered in moss that dripped moisture even across the light-year distance. Root spoke in clicks and rustles. The sound was like dry branches scraping together. The brood is displeased with your progress. The Thornaki operated as a hive entity, a collective will that guided their expansion. Dissent was not a concept they possessed. Spire's bark-like skin tightened. The human negotiator rejected exclusive rights. She offered shared extraction. Presence becomes control, Root stated. The moss on his face pulsed. You allowed them a counteroffer. You should have terminated the conversation. Their stubbornness is a cultural flaw, not a strategic one. They have no faster-than-light travel, no military strength. Root's leaves rustled dismissively. The brood needs cryo-beryl. The Gemmery neutral zone must be reinforced with stronger root networks. The Gemmery were a crystalline species, patient but territorial. Without the mineral, our expansion stalls. The Syndicate Council will not accept delay. Spire understood. The Syndicate was a loose coalition of species that enforced trade agreements with overwhelming force. They did not tolerate weakness. Apply economic pressure, Root ordered. Squeeze their supply lines. They have no allies. They are alone in this system. The human ship has a void reactor, Spire noted. They are not as primitive as we assumed. Root's bioluminescence flickered. A single reactor, captured from a wreck most likely. They lack the infrastructure to build another. Starve them. They will leave. The screen went dark. Spire stood in the silence. Auditor Thorn entered the chamber. The young Thornaki's forearms were covered in sharp spikes, freshly grown and glistening with sap. He carried a spore sensor report in a curled leaf. The device detected minute shifts in energy by tracking ambient particle drift. Executor, Thorn announced. His voice was eager. The human vessel has activated their reactor to full power. Spire turned. For what purpose? Unknown. The energy signature is unusual. It does not match any known design. Thorn unrolled the leaf. The data glowed in pale blue patterns. Spire studied it. The signature was spiky, uneven. It pulsed in irregular intervals. This is dimensional bleed technology, Spire murmured. The humans should not possess this. They may have purchased it from the Sporax, Thorn offered. The fungal traders sell anything. Spire shook his head. The Sporax do not trade power generation to pre-FTL species. They consider it a waste of spores. He stared at the signature. It was growing. The human ship was drawing more energy than it should need. Something was wrong. Order a silent scan, Spire commanded. I want full resolution on that reactor, every harmonic frequency, every waste emission. If it can be exploited, we will force a surrender. Thorn hesitated. The spikes on his forearms twitched. Executor, the reactor may be unstable. A scan could trigger a reaction. Then calibrate it to avoid resonant frequencies. You are an auditor. Calculate the risk. Yes, Executor. Thorn moved to a data node and pressed his fingers into its surface. The yellow glow deepened. A low hum vibrated through the floor. The screen flickered back to life. Director Root's face appeared again. The moss was darker now. A new approach. The Syndicate Council has authorized direct action. Spire's fronds flattened against his neck. Direct action violates the truce. The Gemmery will protest. The Gemmery protest everything. They never act. Their spines are decorative. Root's voice hardened. Send a smaller vessel to intercept the human shuttle. The broker, Cortez, is returning to the surface. Capture her, use her as leverage. Spire felt the weight of the decision. Hostage-taking will escalate the situation. The humans may respond unpredictably. The humans have no capacity to respond, Root clicked sharply. They are children playing with tools they do not understand. Prepare the boarding pod, Executor. I expect results within 2 rotations. The screen went dark. Spire stood motionless. He wanted to refuse, the truce was fragile, but the brood needed cryo-beryl. Expansion was survival. He turned to Thorn. The younger Thornaki was watching him, waiting. "Prepare the boarding pod," Spire ordered. "Target the human shuttle, capture the broker alive, the others are expendable." Thorn straightened. "Yes, Executor." He moved toward the door. The organic wall parted for him and sealed itself behind him. Spire turned back to the spore sensor data. The Void reactor's dimensional bleed signature pulsed one more time, then it stabilized, but the energy output did not decrease. It held steady. At full power, the humans should not be capable of this. He felt the boarding pod detach from the mothership. It was a subtle shift in pressure, a quiet vibration. The pod moved silently through the void. It was heading directly for the human shuttle, for Mira Cortez. The shuttle vibrated hard enough to rattle Myra's teeth. Orange emergency strips cast a dim glow across the cramped cabin. She pressed her palm flat against the bulkhead. The metal was hot from atmospheric entry. The comm crackled. Colony Representative Torben Eckhart's voice came through, strained and thin. "Myra, we have a problem down here." "Just one?" she asked, her own voice steady. "The Thornaki blocked all cargo shipments 6 days ago." A pause, the sound of a hard breath. "No food, no medicine. We are running on emergency rations. People are scared." 6 days, the Thornaki had moved fast. They had already started to suffocate the colony just as Mendez predicted. No ships, no blockades, just the slow crush of logistics. "I am bringing a proposal," she transmitted. "A counteroffer they have not seen yet. They will not talk to us, they just—" A new voice cut through, Amara Osai sharp and clipped. "Myra, we have a problem on this end too." Myra's focus sharpened. "Go ahead." "The quantum mind just resolved a probability path," Amara's voice dropped. "A boarding pod detached from the Thornaki ship. It is on an intercept course with your shuttle." The cabin felt smaller. "Time to intercept?" Myra asked. 11 minutes, maybe 12. Myra looked at pilot Juana Reyes. The woman's jaw was tight. Her hands were locked on the controls, sweat beaded along her hairline. "Evasive action," Myra ordered. "Now." Juana yanked the controls hard to port. The shuttle groaned. Myra's harness bit into her shoulders. Her stomach dropped as the craft banked steeply. The hull screamed against the atmosphere. A proximity alarm blared. Myra gripped the armrest. "Amara, how close is the pod?" "Within 4 kilometers, closing fast." "Prepare the railgun array." A beat of silence, then Amara's voice quieter. "You want me to fire?" "No, I want it ready. Do not fire unless I tell you. We need time." Myra reached for the comm panel. She keyed the frequency for the Thornaki vessel. The channel hummed open. Executor Spire's voice emerged, calm and smooth as polished wood. "Broker Cortez, I trust you have reconsidered our offer." "I have reconsidered a lot of things." She kept her tone flat. "Why is your boarding pod targeting my shuttle?" "A security measure. The brood cannot risk you carrying contraband to the colony. I suggest you surrender control of the shuttle to my security team. No one needs to be harmed." No one needs to be harmed. She had heard that phrase before. Every colonial governor in Thornaki territory heard it right before the suffocation started. "No," she said. The line went quiet. She imagined Spire's fronds flattening, his bark-like skin shifting. "Broker Cortez, you are outmatched. Your ship is dead in orbit. Your colony is starving. This is not a negotiation. This is an inevitability." "Let me tell you something about inevitability." She leaned forward. "Humans do not surrender. We lose, we break, we die, but we do not surrender. That is not how we are built." She cut the channel. Juana looked at her. Her eyes were wide. "Ma'am, the pod is 200 meters and closing." The shuttle shook. A grinding noise tore through the cabin. Metal screeched against metal. The whole craft lurched sideways. Myra's head snapped against the headrest. The boarding pod had latched on. Juana fought the controls. The shuttle bucked. An alarm changed pitch, lower and more urgent. A red indicator lit up. "Hull breach," Juana reported. "Section 4, it is tearing through." Myra's mouth went dry. She grabbed an emergency oxygen mask. The plastic was cold against her face. She heard the screech of metal tearing. Louder, closer. The smell hit her next. Hydraulic fluid, hot ozone, burning wiring. She looked at Juana. "Eject the cargo module." Juana's face went pale. "Ma'am, that is everything we brought for the colony." "I know, do it." Juana's hand hovered over the release switch. Her fingers trembled. The tearing sound grew louder. The hull buckled inward. A thin line of atmosphere vented with a high-pitched hiss. Mira reached out and pressed Juana's hand down onto the switch. The shuttle lurched. A heavy thud traveled through the frame. The cargo module separated, tumbling away into the atmosphere. The sudden shift in weight pulled the craft higher. A muffled detonation echoed through the hull. The boarding pod had been torn loose. Its icon on the proximity display spun and fell toward the planet below. The shuttle stopped shaking, but the alarms kept screaming. "Atmosphere loss is accelerating," Juana said, her voice steady again. "We have maybe 4 minutes before we lose pressure entirely. We need to land now." Mira looked through the forward viewport. Below her, the colony lights glittered, small, distant, fragile. 4 minutes. She pressed the comm. "Torben, we are coming in hot. Clear the landing zone. Tell everyone to get inside." Torben's voice came back tight with fear. "Understood, we see you." The shuttle tilted downward. The colony rushed toward them. Mira pressed her palm flat against the cold metal of the armrest. She thought of the ship in orbit, blind and vulnerable. She thought of Mendez watching from the bridge. She thought of Spire, his calm voice, his certainty. Anger rose inside her. It was not fear. This was older, deeper, something that lived in her cells. Humans do not surrender. The ground rushed up to meet them. The command chamber of the Thornaki mothership pulsed with amber light. Executor Spire stood before the holographic display. The image showed the human shuttle tumbling, its hull scored and leaking atmosphere. A thin trail of debris followed it like blood. Lost, the boarding pod was gone. The 6 spore warriors inside were gone. The detached cargo module had dragged them into the moon's gravity well. Spire slammed his fist against the fungal console. The impact left a dent. A puff of acrid spores billowed into the air, burning his olfactory pores. Auditor Thorn flinched beside him. The junior's forearm Thorn stood erect with anxiety. His tendrils twitched. He said nothing. Spire stared at the shuttle. The humans were more resistant than expected. He had calculated the trajectory. He had accounted for evasive maneuvers. He had not accounted for their willingness to sacrifice their own supplies. That was not rational. That was not logical resource management. The interface chimed. Director Root's voice came through, layered with clicks and rustles. "You lost the pod." Spire's fronds flattened against his skull. The pod was intercepted. The humans ejected their cargo module deliberately, a tactical sacrifice. A pause followed. The rustling intensified. "The brood does not tolerate excuses. The ship carries bioweapons. Use them." The Thornaki bioweapons were engineered plagues designed to dismantle organic matter at a molecular level. Spire turned to face the interface. His voice came out rough. Direct assault on the human ship could damage the cryo-beryl deposits. A blast wave from a biological agent could fracture the fragile lattice structure. The interface crackled. Root's voice dropped lower. "The brood will extract the mineral after the humans are gone. The deposits are deep enough to survive surface bombardment. You will not fail twice." Spire's jaw tightened. He tasted bitter sap rising in his throat. He forced it down. "Yes, Director." Auditor Thorn stepped forward. "Executor, the void reactor is fluctuating. The energy signature is unstable. It may be preparing for a jump." Spire narrowed his eyes. The humans had no faster-than-light capability. A jump was impossible. Thorn's voice dropped to a whisper. "It might be a self-destruct mechanism." The words hung in the air. Spire turned to the main display. The void reactor's data stream scrolled across the screen. The numbers were erratic. The dimensional bleed pulsed unevenly. A low-frequency rumble emanated from the chamber's speakers, unsettling and deep. He ordered a long-range scan. The console hummed. Data flowed in. The dimensional bleed was destabilizing. The reactor was drawing energy from a region of space that was collapsing inward. If the reactor detonated, the release would not be a simple explosion. It would annihilate a small region of space. Spire's fronds flattened entirely. His breathing slowed. The humans were not fighting for territory. They were not fighting for resources. They had brought a weapon that could kill them all. That changed everything. Root's voice crackled through the interface again. "Spire, status." Spire straightened. His own voice was flat. "The reactor is a bomb. If we attack the ship directly, the humans will detonate it. The blast will consume the colony, the cryo-beryl, and both our vessels." Silence, the rustling stopped. Then Root spoke. His voice was cold, hard. "What do you propose?" Spire looked at the holographic display. The shuttle had stabilized. It was descending. Mira Cortez was still alive. He could not destroy the ship, but he could capture the ground. "Prepare a ground force," Spire said. "Spore warriors, full deployment." Auditor Thorne's tendrils shot erect. "Executor, a ground assault will take time. The reactor could destabilize further." Spire turned to face him. "The humans will not detonate the reactor while their people are on the surface. They value individual lives over strategic victory. That is their weakness." Thorne tilted his head. "And if they do detonate it?" Spire's eyes narrowed. "Then we die fighting, not waiting." He turned back to the console. The display shifted to show the colony below, a cluster of small structures, a landing pad. Humans moved between buildings. They looked fragile, slow. Spire issued the order. "Prepare the drop pods. We secure the colony. We capture the humans. We take the cryo-beryl." Thorne nodded and hurried out of the chamber. Spire stood alone. He watched the colony. The humans kept moving. They kept working. They kept surviving. A strange feeling rose in his chest. It was not admiration. It was recognition of shared stubbornness. The humans would rather die than surrender. That made them dangerous. That made them worth crushing. A notification chimed. The drop pods were ready. 20 organic capsules, each filled with 8 spore warriors. 160 warriors, enough to overrun the colony in minutes. The first impact flare lit up the sky above the colony. He paused. He watched the light bloom. Another flare followed. The drop pods were descending. Spire walked toward the deployment bay. The humans would learn what it meant to resist the Thornaki brood. Across the colony, a human shuttle touched down. The hatch opened. Mira Cortez stepped out. She looked up. Her face went pale. The sky was burning. She saw the organic pods falling. She saw the Thornaki ground force descending. She reached for her communicator. Her voice was steady. "Dario, we have company." Mira Cortez stood on packed red dirt and watched the sky tear open. Another Thornaki drop pod punched through the atmosphere, its organic hull screaming as it fell. The impact shook the ground beneath her boots. Dust rose in thick clouds. She turned to face the colonists gathered in the central dome. 37 of them. Miners, engineers, families. Torben Eckhart stood at the front, his face pale. The emergency lights painted everyone in harsh amber. Mira raised her voice over the distant rumble. "Listen to me. They want this colony. They want the cryo-beryl, but they want us gone more than anything. We are not going to be gone." She kicked open a crate of mining tools. The clatter of metal filled the dome. Picks, hammers, cutting torches. "Take one each. If you cannot find a weapon, grab a flare. When they come through that door, we make them bleed for every inch." Torben Eckhart stepped forward. His voice cracked. "We have children here. We cannot fight an army." Mira met his eyes. "Then we give them time to run. The ship can evacuate from the far side of the colony, but we need to hold the main generator. That is our line." She pulled out her radio. The crackle of static gave way to Captain Mendez's voice. "Mira, we see the drop pods. We have a firing solution, but we cannot engage without hitting the colony." "I know, Captain. Do not fire. Keep the ship ready for emergency extraction. How long until the reactor is stable?" A long pause followed. "It is not stable," Mendez stated. "The dimensional bleed is widening. Amara estimates 30 minutes before critical failure." 30 minutes, that was nothing. "Understood. Hold position. Cortez out." She clipped the radio to her belt and walked toward the dome's exit. The airlock cycled open. The thin atmosphere hit her face like a wall of cold sand. In the distance, a drop pod cracked open like a flower. Executor Spire stepped onto the surface of Epsilon 7. The atmosphere was thin and dry. The gravity felt light. He spread his fronds and let them taste the air. His spore warriors emerged from their own pods, moving with wet, organic sounds. Their limbs were thick and fibrous, tipped with sharp thorns. Spire raised a hand. The warriors stopped. Auditor Thorne approached, his forearm spikes extended. "Executor, the humans have gathered in the central dome. They are arming themselves with mining tools." Spire considered this. Implements of extraction repurposed for violence. It was inefficient, desperate, exactly what he expected. "Press the advance, secure the generator, cut off their power, and they will have no light, no heat, no communications." Thorne hesitated. "And the ship? The void reactor is fluctuating if it destabilizes completely." "I am aware of the risk, Auditor. Move." Thorne signaled the warriors forward. Spire followed at a measured pace. He saw the colony now. A cluster of prefab domes, gray and battered. Humans were running between them. Some carried tools, some carried children. They all looked afraid. Fear was the first concession. Amara Osai stared at the quantum mine's readout. Her stomach dropped. The crystalline structure pulsed with erratic light. The superposition state was collapsing faster than she could recalibrate. She slammed her palm against the diagnostic panel. "Captain, we have a problem." Mendez appeared at the doorway. "How bad?" Amara pointed at the fluctuating graph. "The void reactor is drawing energy from a space collapsing into itself. When it reaches critical mass, the reactor will release all that energy at once. We are looking at a localized reality failure." Mendez's expression did not change. "Time. 25 minutes, maybe less." He nodded slowly. "Can you slow it down?" Amara looked at the quantum mind. It was failing, but it was still processing. "I can try to route the quantum mind's output back into the reactor. It might stabilize the bleed for a few extra minutes, but it will create a massive energy surge. Everything within 100 meters will experience superposition interference." Mendez watched her work. "What does that mean for the crew?" Amara looked up at him, her hands steady. "It means nothing will be certain. Matter will fluctuate. Positions will become probabilities. We might not be able to tell what is real until the surge passes." Mendez was silent for a long moment. He placed his hand on her shoulder. "Do it. I will inform Mira." Mira saw them coming. The ground vibrated with the rhythm of heavy footsteps. Tall, angular shapes moved between the domes. The Thornaki warriors advanced in a wide arc. She turned to the colonists. "Get to the generator, overload it on my signal, then run for the ship." Torben Eckhart grabbed her arm. "What are you going to do?" "Talk to them." She stepped out into the open. She held the detonator in her hand. The wind whipped her hair across her face. She walked until she was 20 meters from the nearest warrior. Then she stopped. Executor Spire emerged from the line. His fronds flared wide. He smelled of smoke and wet earth. "Mira Cortez, you are cornered. Your ship is dying. Surrender and I will allow your people to leave." Mira held up the detonator. "This is connected to the colony's main generator. If I press this button, the reactor overloads. The explosion will vaporize the cryo-beryl. You will get nothing." Spire's fronds flattened. "You would destroy your own resource." "We would rather have nothing than let you take it." He stared at her. His eyes were dark, liquid, unblinking. He searched her face for a lie. He found nothing. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Spire raised his hand. The warriors stopped. He spoke slowly. "You are willing to end everything, your people, your ship, your future, for what?" "Because we do not surrender," Mira stated. "We burn the ground before we let you walk on it." Spire's fronds trembled. She saw something flicker in his eyes, not fear, not anger, something that looked like understanding. "Perhaps I misjudged your species," he said. Then the sky went white. A shockwave rippled across the atmosphere. The sound came a moment later, a deep roar that shook the ground. Mira looked up. The Perseverance was breaking apart. Blue light bled from its hull like a wound. The void reactor was failing. Her radio crackled. Amara's voice was strained. "Mira, I routed the quantum mind into the reactor. The superposition wave is releasing. Get cover." Mira turned to run, but the light was already washing over her. It was not heat. It was white static that moved through the air like a curtain. The Thornaki warriors froze, their forms blurred, edges became soft, positions became uncertain. Mira looked at Spire. He was fading. His outline wavered like a reflection in disturbed water. She looked down at her own hands. They were translucent. She could see the red dirt through her palms. The static washed over her. She felt herself dissolve, not painfully, not suddenly. It felt like being spread thin across an infinite surface. The last thing she saw was Spire reaching toward her. His hand passed through her shoulder. She felt nothing. Everything became indistinct. She floated in a place that was white and formless. Time became meaningless. She was everywhere and nowhere. And somewhere in the chaos, she heard a voice. Not Spire's, not Mendez's, a voice she did not recognize, but somehow she understood it. "Welcome to the space between probabilities, human. You should not be here, but you are, and now we must decide what to do with you." The white static pressed against Mira's eyes. There was no ground, no sky, just blank luminance, flat and endless. She tried to blink. Nothing changed. She tried to breathe. The air tasted sterile. She could not tell if she was standing or floating or falling. A crackling, distorted sound cut through the silence. It was human. "Mira, Mira, can you hear me?" Amara's voice, thin like she was speaking through deep water. Mira opened her mouth to answer. No sound came out. She tried again. Her throat worked but produced nothing. Something warm pressed against her thigh. She reached down. Her fingers closed around a smooth, curved object in her pocket. The device was a psionic battery, a prototype designed to focus and amplify thought into coherent energy. She had taken it from the ship's armory as a last resort. It hummed against her palm, a low thrum that vibrated through her bones. "Mira, focus on my voice," Amara pleaded. "I need you to understand. The quantum mind collapsed. You fell into the superposition zone. Time and space here are probabilistic. Nothing is fixed until someone observes it." Mira managed a sound, a grunt, a confirmation. "You have to choose a single outcome." Amara's voice broke and reformed. "The zone branches into infinite possibilities. You are in all of them at once. You have to observe one, make it real." Mira looked down at her hands. They flickered. One moment she saw calluses and dirt. The next her hands were smooth and pale. She blinked. They flickered again. "Hold the battery," Amara instructed. "Focus on something real, something you remember. The battery will draw your intention and collapse the wave." Mira closed her eyes. The white static remained. She squeezed the psionic battery. Its warmth spread up her arm. She thought of Earth, not the blue marble in displays. She thought of dust on city streets. The smell of cooking oil and exhaust and flowering vines. The sound of her mother's voice calling her inside. She thought of the colonists, Eckhart's weathered face, the children in the shelter, an old man who had given her his last ration bar. She thought of her family, her brother's laugh, her niece's tiny hand gripping her finger. The battery hummed louder, higher in pitch. The warmth became heat, then light. Mira opened her eyes. The white static shattered. Shards of nothing fell away like broken glass. A corridor formed around her, metal walls riveted and stained with corrosion. Emergency lights cast long orange shadows. The floor was cold steel under her bare feet. She did not remember losing her shoes. She stood in a passageway she recognized. The Perseverance, Deck 3, but the ship was wrong. The air was too still. No ventilation hum, no footsteps. The silence had weight. Mira walked, her footsteps echoed. She passed empty crew quarters, an abandoned workstation, a cup half full of cold coffee. She reached the bridge. The blast doors stood open. She stepped through. Captain Mendez sat in the command chair. His prosthetic arm rested on the console. He did not turn when she entered. He did not breathe. His voice came from everywhere, not from his mouth. "The colony is gone. The Thornaki are gone, but the Cryo-beryl remains." Mira stopped. She looked at him. He looked back without looking. His eyes were fixed on something she could not see. "Locked in a quantum state," he continued. "The collapse scattered it across probability. It exists and does not exist. It can be retrieved only if someone holds the observation steady, anchors it to reality." Mira's throat tightened. "How?" "The psionic battery. It can bridge the gap. It can fix the colony's existence into a single continuous outcome. But the bridge must be maintained. The observation must be constant." "For how long?" Mendez did not answer. The silence stretched. Mira understood. Forever. She looked down at the battery. It glowed soft blue in her palm. The warmth was almost painful now. She could feel it pulling at her thoughts, drinking her attention. The colony, the children, their faces, their names, their lives. She thought of her own face, her own name, the scar over her eyebrow, the memory of her mother's voice. Then she thought of the colony, returned intact. Mira felt herself fading. The edges of her consciousness dissolved into the battery's glow. Her thoughts grew slow, heavy. She walked to the center of the bridge. The void reactor stood there, cold and dead. She placed the battery on its surface. The blue light spread across the metal. It pulsed once, twice. The ship shuddered, lights flickered and steadied. Systems hummed back to life. Through the viewport, she saw the colony lights blink on, scattered across the dark surface of Epsilon 7. Small, steady, alive. Mira smiled, or she thought she did. She could no longer feel her face, her vision blurred. She felt her knees hit the cold metal floor. No pain, just distant pressure. The battery hummed. Its pitch rose higher and higher. Darkness crept in from the edges of her sight. She did not fight it. The colony lights blinked on. She fell into the dark. A voice called her name, desperate, Amara's voice crackling through static. "Mira, Mira, stay with me, please. I am coming. I am almost there. Just hold on." The darkness swallowed the sound. Mira did not resist. She had made her choice. The colony was real. The people were alive. That was enough. The last thing she felt was the battery pulsing beneath her palm. A heartbeat. Her heartbeat, no longer separate. Then nothing. The white static did not end. It spread. Executor Spire floated in a space with no up, no down, no distance. His consciousness was a scatter of fragments. He felt his fronds twitching against nothing. He felt each thought pulled apart into 1,000 possible versions. He forced himself to hold, to root. Plantoid cohesion was not a choice. It was a biological imperative. A Thornaki did not scatter. A Thornaki held. Spire reached for that instinct. He pulled his awareness inward. The fragments began to knit. Each strand of memory reattached to the trunk of his identity. A ripple passed through the void. He sensed the brood's collective mind reaching out from light years away. They probed him. They asked for data. He had no data. He had only a feeling. The human broker had done something, a choice that was not a choice. She had anchored herself. She had become the fixed point in a collapsing probability field. Spire opened his awareness. He saw the colony reform. It did not rebuild. It resolved from chaos into shape. The dome stood. The generator hummed. The colonists emerged from cover, blinking in the red light of Epsilon 7's sun. He saw Mira fall. She collapsed in the center of the colony square. Her body hit the ground. Her hand was still closed around something small and warm, a psionic battery. It glowed faintly, then dimmed, then went dark. She did not get up. Colonists gathered around her. A woman with short hair knelt. Amara Osai, the engineer. She touched Myra's neck. She shook her head. Spire understood. Mira had chosen to become the anchor. She had sacrificed her own continuity, her own reality, to hold the colony in one stable timeline. She had given everything and asked for nothing. A profound shift moved through him. It was a change in the way he perceived value. The humans were not irrational. They operated on a principle he had never encountered. They gave themselves completely for something larger. They did not calculate cost. They calculated meaning. The white static dissolved. Spire felt gravity return. Weight, temperature, the pressure of atmosphere against his bark. He opened his eyes. He was on the surface. The colony stood 50 meters away. His spore warriors lay scattered across the red plain. They were rising, confused. Auditor Thorn pulled himself to his feet nearby. His photosynthetic fronds were flat with exhaustion. Executor, the quantum event has collapsed. The brood network is instructing us. Spire did not answer. He watched the colony. He watched Amara Osai carry Mira Cortez's body into the nearest dome. A chime sounded from his wristcom. The hollow emitter activated. Director Root's moss-covered form appeared. Spire, Root's voice was a low-clicking rasp. The Syndicate Council has observed the outcome. They have ordered a full retreat. The humans are too unpredictable. The brood will find other sources of Cryo-beryl. Spire felt his fronds stiffen. He did not look away from the colony. No. Root's own fronds flared. No, you will not refuse a council directive. I will. Spire turned to face the projection. His voice was flat, unyielding. The humans have shown us something we did not understand. They fight for survival, yes, but they also fight for each other. That is not weakness. That is a strength the brood has never cultivated. Root leaned forward. You are offering a recommendation. I am offering a new approach, Spire countered. He extended a hand toward the colony. We do not need to consume. We can cooperate. We can grow together. Root was silent for a long moment. The council will not approve. Then do not tell them, not yet. Give me one cycle. If the alliance fails, I will accept the retreat. If it succeeds, the brood will have gained something more valuable than a mining contract. Root's fronds lowered slowly. He stared at Spire. One cycle. The transmission ended. Spire walked toward the colony. Auditor Thorn followed. The spore warriors rose behind them. Their confusion faded into obedience. Spire stopped at the colony's perimeter. A human stood before him. A man with gray-streaked hair, Torben Eckhart. His hand rested on a tool repurposed as a weapon. His eyes held no surrender. We do not have time for more threats, Eckhart said. His voice was raw. Say what you came to say. Spire spread his fronds, a gesture of openness. I came to offer an alliance, not as conqueror, as partner. Your broker showed me that survival is not the only goal. Meaning matters more. Eckhart stared at him. Long seconds passed. Then he lowered the tool. Mira gave everything for this colony. I will not let that be for nothing. If you mean what you say, we can talk, but we do it on equal ground. Spire inclined his head. Equal ground. The two species stood facing each other across the red dust of Epsilon 7. Behind them, the Cryo-beryl deposits pulsed with faint blue light, a resource that had nearly destroyed them, a resource that might now bind them together. Inside the nearest dome, Amara Osei pressed her hand against Myra's still chest. The psionic battery lay dark on the table. The colony lived. Mira was silent, but Amara felt a faint warmth under her palm, a beat, then another. She leaned closer and whispered a single word. Stay. Above the colony, the void reactor on the Perseverance hummed with renewed stability. The quantum mind pulsed once. A superposition resolved. An outcome became real. Myra's fingers twitched. And the alliance began.